Live. We are live. What is up, Mr. Thomas LaMay?
How's it going?
Doing good? Bro, like for real, how many pounds have you lost? Because I feel like you lost 10 pounds since the last time I saw you.
I don't like to brag because it goes.
The up and down.
It was constantly. God, I was thinking about this today. I don't like to brag, but I should tell people that in construction, that this process is so hard.
Yep.
So hard. And people ask me like, how did you do it? I think, Jesse, it's like 80 pounds.
80 pounds.
80. But like, that doesn't matter. What matters is like, imagine wearing, it's like one exercise that I like to do. I don't know if I like it. I shouldn't say you don't like it's rucking. Have you ever done that?
Yep.
It's like hiking with weights. So like the iron skillet. Guess who got me into into rucking? It wasn't Jocko.
It was Kirby
from the original Ruck. Okay, that book came out in '86. Jocko went to Bud's in the early '90s, so like Herbie was the original rucker. So
yeah, man.
But imagine if your iron skillet in your backpack wore 80 pounds, but you couldn't ever take it off. You know what the best part about when you get done with a ruck is? The
taking it off.
Oh, because it's like sometimes I will I wouldn't call what I do running. I would say it's not walking. But like I will go for a light run afterwards, and like you take that weight off. Sometimes I'll go like 35 pounds. You feel like you're flying. Like
yeah.
That's the best part. That is the best part is when you take it off. So what I like my mindset, I'm like how not to like do the up and down constantly is just remember that I couldn't ever take it off ever. Right.
Yeah.
When you're in bed sleeping, I had all kinds of sleep problems because like the tissue around your neck, it obstructs.
Yep.
I'm not to brag, but people like ask me like, how did you do it? Like, do you do like keto or fasting? Right. I'm like, yes. But guess how I do it? I do it with systems thinking.
Yeah.
And they're like, get out of here. I don't believe you. You must just starve yourself.
Yeah.
Yes. You definitely get hungry for sure. But my thing is in construction is that it's so hard because, and I'll tell you why it's hard because of like the kind of popular ways to get into kind of like wellness or fitness or just being healthy. You have to get into these routines.
Yeah.
Like I'll go to the gym or I will wake up early in the morning and put a picture of my watch on Facebook and then go work out.
Yeah.
Like if you have to go to work at 4 a.m. to get on the road. So I was actually commuting this morning. If you, and behind me is a systems diagram, by the way, which we'll talk about it. But like a lot of people in the San Francisco Bay Area, they have to work. Oops, I'm getting backwards. They have to work in San Francisco, but almost none of them live there. And it takes a long time to get into the city. And like some people go 2 hours in, 2 hours out. And even if it's like, let's say it's hour and a half, which is pretty typical in the Bay Area, pretty typical, 90 minutes. Even if it's by the time you get out of your car, You putz around and you get all the stuff out of your car. You get in there. It's like 2 hours. So 2 hours each way, 5 days a week. That's 10 hours. That's a part-time job.
Absolutely.
So it's like I got a full-time job and I got a part-time job just to move myself to the full-time job.
Yes.
So to find time for the traditional ways of fitness or wellness, like when and the way you have to do it is take it out of your sleep.
Yep.
So it's like you're getting 6 hours if you're lucky. And like when I started in construction, I didn't have my cushy management job. I was a surveyor, and we're out beating in the sun all day. They wear the big sombreros for a reason, and it's to keep the sun from baking off you. When you get off of work at 4 o'clock, it's like, oh, you still have the whole day, man. You're done. You're exhausted.
Yep.
Like I was setting slope stakes all day on the side of a road, standing at 32 degrees like this. And like it's not a good ergonomic position. So you're tired, you're physically tired. But that activity that we call like labor, and you studied this too, maybe you can kind of give some reasons why, but that labor that you do, it's not exercise at all. It's really hard on your body. And the other thing is it's very taxing, meaning like you burn calories to do it, but it's not very efficient calories that you burn.
Right.
And like you're tired, so you're depleted at that end of that shift. Like you want to go run 3 miles after that?
Negative.
No, I would go and take a nap. That was like the post-work nap. Oh, it's glorious. Like between 5, it's hot all day. You get in the air-conditioned apartment, you get in bed. Oh, great. But then you wake up at like 8 o'clock, like you're not going to the gym then either. So, so like how does a person overcome that? You start to have to like really challenge kind of traditional methods of nutrition. It's freaking hard what I'm trying to say. And the way I overcame that, I didn't overcome it with any one thing. You know what I like? The main thing that like helped me the most? Seeking help, saying, I need help with this. I've tried and failed 100 times. I've gained and lost these 80 pounds probably 3 times. And it wasn't until I actually get help. And then people will be like, well, you need to not follow a workout program from when you were 22 years old.
For real.
Right? Like you're not a college football player anymore. You're a damn near old man. So it's like, you know what, you're right. So I think we'll talk about, I don't want to keep rambling on and on and on about that, but like what I want people to say is that when you decide to go down a wellness path, you better become armed. You're going to get conflict the whole way, including from people who love you.
Yes.
And so the way to overcome that is, one, get help, meaning like go seek professional help. There's like nutritionists, there's all kinds of things. If you have benefits, most of it's paid for anyways.
Or
a lot of it's subsidized. And then the other one is putting weight in a backpack and going around walking your dog. It might be something you do already. You just got to kind of change the method. We're gonna talk about adaptation here in a second and why it's important.
Fancy. Okay.
Yes. Or circular causality. We will definitely use causality, but if the thing is like, hey, if I'm going to walk anyways, let's do it effectively. And like, if you walk with a bunch of weight and you don't tell people like, hey, this is an exercise thing I'm doing and it's good for your good, scientifically proven that it's good for you. But like if you just put on a heavy backpack and be like, what are you doing? This is strange behavior. So you'll get challenged on that, even by people you love. So I don't know where we went, but that was a long diatribe on. But it was like, how do I do it? Do it with systems thinking. Yes.
Well,
and thank you for noticing.
Right? That's the connection. Yeah, man. No, I'm digging it. It's motivating for me. But the weight loss, the fitness, health journey path can be this really ambiguous thing, or we can look at it as the system that it is. What are the inputs? What is the outcome? What are we doing? My struggle, I've been doing good. Like I'm on track. My struggle is that I form so much lean muscle mass so quickly. It's hard to see the scale drop the way I want it to. That's a joke. That's delusion.
That lean gains.
Yeah, the gains, baby, the gains. So today this is our fourth conversation. We're back again, and we're going to be talking about shifting your mental models to shift your results. And folks, if you're out there in the Omniverse, I know there's some people watching. Let us know you're there. Let us know where you're coming in from. If you have any 80s movies recommendations or requests, drop them in the comments. We didn't do that this time.
Oh, I'll do it. Okay.
But so we're like on chapter 5 of the 5th discipline. Shift of the mind. So we're, we put a little dent in it. I've gotten some good feedback from people. People enjoy the depth of your intellect. And so I just imagine we're going to have some more fun today. So what are we starting off with, Mr. LaMay?
I want to start off with, I got feedback from from an alum of MIT. The Sloan School of Management, Peter Senge. We've been saying his name all around. It's Professor Peter Senge.
Not Sengi.
Not Sengi.
Senge. Okay.
So I stand here corrected. Didn't happen much on the internet, but I was wrong, and I can now adjust. So now it's Peter Senge, and now we can move on. Let's move on. So sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not the first time. Won't be the last. I still do really appreciate it. But chapter 5.
Yes.
Seeing the world anew.
Yeah.
This starts out with some political discussion. I think we skipped that part.
Yes. There's enough of that going on right now.
But I'm stuck. You have to see conflict from both sides. That's all I'm saying. And so there's conflict in the world right now. I don't want to get into that too much because it's just really, really devastating.
Right.
But the reason, I don't know, this is hard. This is why I wanted to skip past it. But I wanted to say that when you're seeing the world anew, when you're changing the way you see things, you have to acknowledge how other people perceive the world. So when you're starting to, and I'd like to show some, and this is chapter 5, introduces these system models, and when you model something, it has all kinds of problems with modeling, right? Because you have information. There's only so much information that you can actually look at. So it's inherently flawed when you do so. But in a conflict situation, and it's in the book, seeing relationships, seeing interrelationships rather than linear cause and effect. Like this, You did this, I do this, you do this, I do this, you do this, I do this. That's cause and effect. The real
Yep.
world and some of these conflicts right now, they've been going on for thousands of years, and to unravel them is even more complex.
Yep.
What do you think?
Yeah,
But
I like where we're at, because I had a conversation with Stephanie Brown earlier, and we're talking about the messaging, maybe not necessarily the messaging, but like, what are the barriers or the barricades that prevent the trades from adopting some new tech, some new app? And my response was, the summary of my response was, we value different things, right? Like, as an installer, if you're going to make my job easier, if this thing, whatever it is you're giving me, is going to make my body hurt less, or may help me do more faster, I'm interested. If it's going to accelerate the workflow and blah, blah, like, I don't give a shit. Like, I don't, because I'm an installer. And so I need to know, how's it going to benefit me right now? And will that happen every day? As an installer, that's what I value. Now, the same solution, we're talking about sweat equity improvement. If I'm a foreman or a superintendent, I don't really feel that pain. What I want to know is this thing going to help me accomplish more work within the same period of time with the same or fewer people? Because that's my responsibility. And so, different set of values, same work, same experience, same venue. And then if I think of, we'll say management, project managers, ops managers, VPs, etc., I don't really care. Like, my job, my responsibility or my performance rather, is measured on the performance of my P&L statement for that project. So is it going to save me dollars? Is it going to save me labor dollars? And so my point in all of that is, we don't all have to have the same values. We're better off understanding that we have different values. And so it's not, like, to your point, it's not if then, it's understanding the relationships and what that means and how that maybe triggers responses and reactions, because it's not an if then. Like, it just absolutely isn't.
Yeah. So in the book, it says the real leverage in most management situation lies in understanding dynamic complexity, not detail complexity. Right? Dynamic complexity is like how things are moving in between.
Yes.
And
yes.
it's like if I wanted to get, so you're an installer and there's design changes happening, that affects you very greatly, because if you're an installer, that means you're putting something in and it goes in, should be permanent, right? So if there is change to that, the dynamic complexity is, how do we one, alert you to change,
yes,
and then two, how do we design a system that you can make it so you get notified pretty dang easily. Like, it doesn't like consume a bunch of your energy to be like, in what I am doing, what I am about to do, is this correct?
Right.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I'll get out of this conflict part of this chapter, because it is definitely troubling time now. But the key to seeing reality systemically is seeing circles of influence. So there's system diagrams. There's one behind me here.
Yeah.
And you have to, when you look at reality, we were talking about this just a second ago, right?
Yep.
Even if you're looking at reality, like you're standing and I'm staring, and so behind me is the BART system. So it's Bay Area Rapid Transportation. It's like the subway for San Francisco. Some of it goes above the ground. Most of it does, actually. But like if you stand there, you'd be like, it looks like train tracks and this weird, funny looking, funny sounding train that goes by.
Yeah.
You can't see the whole system, for one.
Mm.
It's impossible. So
To see the entire system. Yeah.
You can't. It's impossible. You zoom out, it look like that's the satellite view of the Bay Area, Thomas. Where's the train tracks? You can't see it.
Yep.
There's too much complexity in there. There's too much detail complexity. There's roads, there's bridges, so the cool thing about a model is there's layers to it. And so the circles, it's not an actual circle, but what you're trying to focus on is like what you're trying to influence.
Yeah.
So if you're seeing reality systemically, you're like, okay, I want to see the circles of influence. So the circles of influence on the map behind me here is like, okay, the red line goes between two stations. It goes between Millbrae and North Berkeley. And I cut it off at North Berkeley because I used to live north of Berkeley. I didn't like going up there, so I have my own personal bias, so I cut it off at North Berkeley. Don't ride to Richmond, but the red line goes all the way to Richmond. And so I can see that, because how do I see that? It's the red line. I can follow it all the way up and then along the way. So I can trace an arrow to it. So a systems diagram, if I make a decision, I'm going to ride this rapid transportation system. I'm going to say that it goes from point A to point B, and it stops along these ways. And so you can see that. So you also need a couple other things in your system diagram. I don't know if you have these queued up.
I do not. No,
okay. It don't matter. You know what the thing is, though? Like, we're going raw. Like, I don't have a prepared presentation or breakdown. I wanted to, like, people to know, like, you don't have to, like, be a college professor to, like, understand systems thinking.
Yes.
Though Peter Senge is, but so the first thing after you've diagrammed a system,
yep,
and also another important thing is to put a boundary around it. So you notice this isn't all of California,
right?
This isn't all of the United States. This is just in the Bay Area. So it's really, 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 really. I'm reinforcing for effect. You define the focus.
Okay.
You have to define the focus, and then you set boundaries around it. So when I say, okay, we're going to say since we're talking about BART, I'm going to define the focus. We're going to set boundaries around it, meaning I'm not going to show all of California. I'm just going to show the extents of BART from point A to point B. And once I do that, I've now determined the scope. So that word in construction, scope, and maybe you can tell your version. My version is, and I do a lot, not so much anymore. I did a lot of hunting.
Yep.
So you like look through a scope, and you're limited in the scope on any scope. Could be a surveyor. I guess I was a surveyor. So I'm looking through my device, and the scope is only all you can see is within that scope. So your field of vision is very limited. I'm trying to pantomime.
Yeah.
And that's all I can see. And so the power of a systems diagram, it does that for you. It says, this is the scope. So yes. We're going to, I will show a construction systems diagram here in a minute, but that's really important to define the focus. What is scope to you?
I'm going to say, like, super Jesse land. What the hell are we talking about? Right. Scope is exactly what we're talking about. Now, in the same breath, I've been in too many of these conversations where that scope is an assumption. Like, ooh. I know I'm only talking about these things, but somebody else doesn't understand what those boundaries are. So having a model, a picture, absolutely helps us define or give form to the scope that we have in our head. But just like you said, it's like we're not looking at everything. We're looking at a precise area or precise subject, precise topic. That is the scope. But I feel like, especially when I'm out on job sites, when people start talking about scope, they're thinking like, I feel like it has this effect in people's heads to like think about everything. And it's like, no, 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 no. Like, we're not talking about like, what's the scope of the project? We're building a big ass building. Like, what's the scope of the conversation? Huh? Like, what the hell are we actually talking about? So it's more about excluding or being explicit about what we're not talking about, what we're not studying, what we're not examining. That is the best way I can understand it.
That you just knocked it out of the park. Thank you so much. This is why you do you and I hang out in construction trailer. But the cool thing, I would say the unique thing about my version of scope is you can adjust it. Both in Zoom. So like I can go, some of my scopes are like 5. I think I have a 10x. So because it makes things 10 feet away look like they're 1 foot away. I probably did the math wrong, but you get my point.
Yep.
And you can adjust the focus. And those both are very, very important because we won't get into how light works and lenses, but the focal point is what you're trying to, where the light is hitting what you want to look at.
Yeah.
You want to adjust the lens in a way so it makes that, whatever you're really trying to look at, sharp, and then everything else is blurry. So
got it.
It's a depth of field thing. And that's the cool thing. So like the thing about scope is like, and like a system diagram, like behind me, is like the dial is your ability to show as much information or show little information. And that really depends.
Yeah.
And how it depends is you have to set your boundary. And what you said, man, I'm going to start. I just stole it. I'm sure this is recorded. So I'm rolling with it. It's more important to exclude things.
Yes.
I would say almost more important.
Yes.
It is to include things. And why? Because if I showed a system diagram of BART and it was only satellite video, big, hey, check this out. We got a drone. And we flew a drone and we flew a cool video over it. And it's like, what direction is the drone heading? Where am I? Like, what? Yep. There was a sign there, but the sign is for people walking on the street, not flying over it. So you get no concept. Oh my God. So I think the exclusion is really important.
Yes.
If you're going to do a poll plan,
oh God, yes.
You better be doing some excluding.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Or you're going to be in there for like 3 hours, or just waste everybody's time because you'll get bogged down in the super details.
Yeah.
So, in this chapter, once I guess the focus and the boundaries, that's purpose. Right? Okay. So what is the purpose of, you have to answer that question. And so what I said in an earlier one of these live streams, I said when you do a system diagram, it's a decision. It's like I decide, like Thomas decides to go from, he wants to weigh less.
Yep.
I didn't just put a picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger up in his prime. Right? I can't be Arnold in 1974. I'm sorry. Neither of those things exist now. Me looking like that or Arnold 46 years ago, 42 years ago. So you have to identify the purpose, and the purpose is whatever it is, it's your decision. So when you decide to start your diagramming process or you start to do your poll planning process, you make a decision, and that's from that decision. It's like now you can define the purpose. Be like, okay, we want to pour concrete in this sector right here. That's the decision. How we get there, does it matter if there's a Kurt wall in the supply chain in that poll plan? Maybe. Perhaps not. Perhaps yes.
Right.
Depends, right? So you have to then So Peter Senge then in the next part of it, once you identify purpose, you identify the key components. Key components. And you have to brainstorm these. This is the part where it's fun because you actually get to like talk to other people and include trades. You get to include the architect. You get to list out, and it's like there's almost no wrong answer in this part. In fact, my buddy Brian Winningham says do wrong answers, so it like makes people emotionally, and they like come out of their shell. It's called Triz. But you list all the elements, variables, and factors. You believe, okay, I think these elements need to be in here. These could be tangible. They could be intangible. And in construction, there's 3. There is 3. And I say there's probably more than 3, but if you miss these 3 components, your system map or your brainstorming thing will be incomplete. Okay. So number 1, the most important component in construction is people.
Really?
Why? Do we have 3D printers that in a big scale? No. Things are set in place by human hand. They are torqued, they are placed, they are nailed off, they're cut off, they're welded. You need people to do things, and people are not alone, right? If our work is elevated, right, the people need to be elevated to that place. So they may need equipment, they might need scaffolding, they may need an elevator, they might need stairs, they might need whatever it is. They need things. So the people and the stuff they need, that's a key component. Key component. If you think of the people but don't think of the means to get from A to B, from the ground to 30 feet in the air, it's incomplete.
Yes.
First one. Second one is the materials.
Okay. Right? I'm digging it.
So you have to, it's a key component. If you're missing the materials, the people stand idle.
Yes, there's nothing they can do. Yep.
Yeah. Or if you have a tower crane but nothing to lift, it just spins around in the air. It's cool to look at, and it's got our name on the side of it, but without materials to hoist, that thing is just a really expensive lever. Really expensive lever. And by the way, there's some person inside of it sitting idle.
It's not cheap either.
So the material itself is key. And the third one is information.
Oh, does the information have to be accurate?
Here you go. So information comes in many forms. But the most important form of the information, it is correct. So if we need dimensions, if we need authorization, like, hey, you're not authorized to work on this. You haven't done orientation. You haven't passed the drug screen, whatever, right? Hey, listen, I'm going to pressure you. I have the people here and I have the material here. No, you're not authorized. Right? You might need keys. We might have everything put together, but the dang equipment room is locked. So information is key, and the information has to be correct. The same with the people, right? If you have people who aren't trained, aren't skilled, like they're hungover, right?
Compromised,
or beat or injured, that also is an issue. And then also materials. If your materials are not organized, if they're super, like if it's wrong, like we this is a mixed design, and the mixed design that's sitting right here is not what's specified. So all 3 of these things, your key components have to be here's the test. They have to be interdependent. Yeah. So interdependent meaning they're all independent things.
Yep.
Like you can have a materials, you can have people,
Yep.
and you can have information. All of these things could flow independently. But if you want something to happen in a construction job site, all they have to hit at the exact same time at the exact same place.
Yeah. Yes.
So those are three. Those are three. You can have many, many more components. Don't get me wrong. You can have subcomponents of subcomponents of subcomponents. Like you can go on and on and on. But if you're missing any one of those three components, you will have problems in your model, and you will most definitely have those in the real world. What do you think about those three?
I think those are beautiful, right? Like, I mean, I think maybe after that comes tools, or that could fall under people. But yeah, I mean, we've all experienced it, right? If I show up with people and the information I have is outdated, that's not a good thing. That's going to cost money. Or I don't have all the information, that I'm going to keep going because they're telling me to hurry up, but now there's risk. If we don't have the materials, I mean, that's a deal breaker. Or flooding the thing with material. I mean, here's another thing, right? So materials, people, and information, yes, key components, but there's a, I don't know if the word balance is, if that's the right word, but like having the right amount is right. Like that's a big deal, because having all the damn information, giving me the information for the damn fixtures, and we're doing an underground rough-in, I don't need that information, right? So timely and relevant. There's some things, I think there's some qualifiers in there that
this is why you have to map it. But yes, keep going.
Right.
Go on,
Right. So, I mean, back again with the scope, right? If we scope out what the hell we're not talking about, then we can get more granular or precise on what people, what material, what information, or what about those things. We need to take into account. And I think here's something that kind of blows my mind just a little bit. When the projects are being pursued, and I'm going to hammer on trade contractors specifically, you're going after a project, you get a project with the GC, and there's no available parking for your people. So now they either have to park down the street and risk getting a ticket, or they've got to incur the cost for parking, but that's not in your budget. So the worker has to absorb that.
Yeah, that's their part-time job.
Right?
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Which you won't get paid for it. And in fact, it's an expense. You have to pay out.
But the company doesn't want to, like, no, that you just got to figure it out. Y'all can carpool or do whatever you want. Like, come on, man. Like, you clearly did not account for the people. Or look at the GC. Why aren't there parking? Why hasn't parking been secured? Some form, some way. Why isn't that? You know you're going to have people on this project. Why have you not made the necessary accommodations so that people can freaking park to come and do this building? And then we can take that into porta potties, or they don't have to be porta potties, but temporary bathrooms. You know people are going to be on site. And you got these mediocre ass freaking sweat boxes for people to use for the next year and a half. Like, were you thinking about the people when you were going through your logistics plan, et cetera? Because, like you said, nothing gets built without people. And when people spend a lot of time somewhere, they got stuff that needs to come out, right? Like, it's no surprise.
People are human beings that have biological function. Yes.
You got it.
Shocking.
Yeah. So too often, I think, rather, I'll say it this way. There's a whole lot of examples out there where the people have not been considered in terms of accommodating them in a respectful way to do the damn construction.
A great system diagram. I wish I can show some. Most of my 12 years previous of doing these diagrams are probably under an NDA. But what you just said, you have to incorporate human beings, and not just the human beings who are signing the check for it. You have to incorporate the human beings that do that work. So
Yes.
if you're missing walk paths,
Yes.
right, make people.
Yes.
And I work in South Carolina. It rains almost every single day lately. And walking in mud and clay in South Carolina is not pleasant. And like, it doesn't come off.
Right. It's like that orangey.
Yes.
Yep.
It doesn't, like, you take it home.
Take it everywhere.
Get rid of it. I'm lucky I have this big fancy job. I can wear multiple pairs of shoes, but not everybody can.
Right.
And so you have to be like, we don't want people to walk in mud. Therefore, we're going to have to spend some bucks on base rock and maintain it. And it's like, we're going to spend as the least amount of money on base rock. Then we have to also think about, okay, if our budget is not unlimited for movement of humans through our job site, then let's think about a strategic way to lay it out so people can get from their vehicle to the work and then back in a very efficient manner. And maybe it has to shift a few times because we got utilities or something that has to cross paths, but we take that into consideration. It's not the utility is always the whatever happens, and the people will just have to jump over the ditch.
Yeah.
No, that is absolutely not respecting people. Yeah. So like, you have to do that. And parking. Yeah. Oh man, I'm on this big giant project. We're paving today. Guess what we're paving? I'm paving the owner parking lot. We're paving our trades. Because like, also guess what? You get out of your car.
Yes. Yes.
And if you have to change boots, do you have to change? I've done this before. Like do the hokey pokey where you stand on one foot and change your boots.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's not pleasant, and so we have to be very conscious of that. So thank you for really driving home. Like, what is the easy way to really respect people? It's like, give them some dignity, give them a path. They don't have to walk in mud. Give them a path where they don't have to like break the rules. So like cut through somewhere. If the walk path from the parking area to the work path is exponentially more difficult than the walk path for maybe someone who's working in an adjacent building or the same building that you're working on. And I'm not saying it has to be the same. I'm just saying it can't be exponentially more difficult.
Right.
And if it is, then we've made a bad deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I can't explain that enough. So thank you for sharing that. And that's very important to me. My company, we coach owners on this because we get challenged all the time.
Yes.
And listen, I will say this, and we've had this conversation with very, very famous owners. All of they're on the top of the stock market, the Dow. Yeah. It's like, what's one way we can overcome this labor issue, Thomas? I'll be like, make your place of business a place where people want to come to work. And we all have a choice to go to work on these projects in most ways.
Yep.
And so people vote with their feet.
Totally.
Right. And if you want the best deserve the best. They deserve hard surface parking. They deserve good walk paths. That's ergonomic. They're not trudging up 17 floors of stairs to get to their work. Or, they don't have to go upstairs because there's a hoist involved. So those kind of things. And are those things expensive? Yes. Absolutely, they are. They are very expensive, but it's like if we are truly in the world of respecting people, that is the cost of the work, period.
Yeah.
right?
Well, I mean, totally.
Yeah.
And you know, there's
That's a hard one. That's a
I
hard
think
one.
the
'Cause we
challenge
get challenged
is
a lot. Yeah.
what people think is like, we're going to spend that much money on parking. Like, what? We're going to spend that much money on walking paths. It's like, yes, I know the morale that it's going to have an impact on the morale, right? Like, just knowing that there's going to be plenty of places for space for me to park. I'm going to park a little further away the later I get there, but there's plenty of parking.
Mhm.
And I can get out of my truck and walk to wherever it is. I'm not going to be slopping around in mud every day. Huge morale boost. Now,
Yeah.
what I'll say the norm is, like, figure it out. Stop your complaining, get your ass to work. Okay. Well, guess what? I'm going to be tracking clumps of mud into the job site, onto the pad, which is a safety hazard. So I'm going to increase risk on the project. That mud is going to fill up the freaking studs, and we're going to, like, because I got to clean my boots off somewhere. I'm going to clean it on a ladder. I'm going to clean it on some studs. I'm going to clean it on a door frame.
Stairs. Yeah.
My stairs. And guess what? That's added cost and added risk.
Yeah.
And then guess what? If I have my stuff on wheels, I can't push that stuff around. Why? Because it's going to get all clumped up in mud. So now I got piles of material all over the place. Like, it has direct impact to production, to schedule, to safety performance, to risk. So I don't know that anybody's quantified it, but there is a direct connection between the money you spend to just provide a walkway and some parking.
I'll quantify it for you right now. I'll even call them out. When I was a surveyor, some part of our work was to do construction layout.
Yep.
So, like, set building corners or property lines on a construction job site. And this contractor, Peter Kiewit, they had the cleanest job sites, so well organized, and they would communicate with us very well. In their bathrooms, they're porta-johns. They were still porta-johns. This was the early 2000s. Jeez.
Yeah.
Getting old. But it would be like, we would go there. If we would take a break on one project and we would go back to the other project that was clean and organized and use their toilets. But guess what? Guess where we wanted to go always, or we're happy about it? We were happy to go to Kiewit's job sites because they're organized, they're safe, they're well lit.
Yep.
And they got better service from me. And I was young. I didn't even understand these types of things. I was very impressionable. 22 years old, Thomas here, holding as a rod person. And listen, we would talk about this. So this is very real conversation. This conversation had happened 25 years ago, but we would like to go to Peter Kiewit's job sites. This is their building division, because it was everything that you said. So you would talk about morale, like, you get better service by doing this. And that's the circle of causality. It's like, we spend the money. So back to chapter 5, the circle of causality. If we spend the money, if we pave the road, we give them parking that's lit, it's safe, it's secured. You're not parking in downtown San Francisco out in the middle of nowhere. You're in a protected area. Listen, this is the real world.
Yep.
So, like, we give people these things, and they are expensive, but then there's a circle of it. The cause, it's not linear like we started this thing. It's like, I feel better. I like coming here. I'm going to talk to my, my coworkers that are working on other projects. We're going to brag about it. And I know this happens. This happens to say they talk about and I've heard this to my face, that, Thomas, when we come to your project, it's like a new world.
Yeah.
Even comparing it to another project of my same company.
Yep.
And it's like, well, what's the difference? And we're like, well, it's a lot of things, but it's just all of those things together makes for a better time. And when people have a better time at work, they're way more productive. So you don't have to do the productivity trackers.
Yep.
We just have to use AI, actual intelligence.
I'm with you, man.
The circle of causality, and that's exactly it. Yes. Okay. So I'll let you finish.
Yeah, I mean, I'll do a quick story, right? So maybe I do have a little data point also. Big old giant data center up in the Midwest, another competing data center operator and competing general contractor were starting a project about a mile down the road. And they offered a stipend of a few $100s a week to get electricians off of this project that I was associated with to go work on the other project. They had a small percentage of electricians say, hell yeah, I want that money, right? $200-300 a week extra. They went and took it. I thought there was like, what do you mean there's not an exodus of electricians going over there for a couple $100 a week? So I asked several, like, why didn't you go? And they're like, bro, because y'all take care of us here. There's parking. We have air conditioned temporary bathrooms. We do have porta potties like way further out, but there's the facilities. There's a lunch facility. Y'all plan your work. Like it ain't work. Like, and we know how that contractor over there treats people. They treat people like garbage. So it ain't worth the couple hundred. I mean, let's just say, I know it was more than 200, but let's just say it was $200 a week, right? That's freaking 10 grand in a year. They were turning down 10 grand because they were going to simply have a better experience here than with the other project with that other contractor. And so, yes, right? Like, yes, it is proven.
It's
and I think
the financial incentive wasn't the circle of causality.
Nope.
It didn't meet it.
Yep.
It wasn't enough. I bet if it was $1,000 a week, maybe.
Well, then maybe, yeah. Maybe I'll try that out.
But you would change your worldview a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Even so, yeah. People ask, why do you leave these high-paying jobs? And it's because it's not worth it.
It's just not, right? What's the cost?
Like Tom from MySpace. Like, have you heard or seen from that guy? That guy got it. He's gone.
I'm out.
Yes. God dang. So yes, thank you. That's exactly it. So thank you for defining the circle of causality. And it's like, things that you pour into it. And so in systems thinking, those are relationships, or some people call them feedback loops.
Oh, my favorite.
So once you have identified key components, so I'll go back to my map of BART behind my head here, right? We got all the stops. We know the direction of work. We know from where it goes to what it goes. We know we can now orientate ourselves on it. You now have to identify the things, right? Yep. You have to connect the dots. And in a systems diagram, it's beautiful. Literally, they're connecting the dots in my head behind me.
Right.
It shows relationships between the dots.
Yes.
And so it's so important. So like a pull plan, and it only has the Post-its on the wall, but no linkage, no link lines. It's incomplete.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, why do you have to put the Post-it on the chart paper, Thomas? So you can draw the lines. That's why. And the reason why it's blank is so that you don't enter any bias into your line drawing process.
Yes.
Right? Remember the scope conversation? It's awesome.
Oh man, yeah, I have a
crazy
big heartache about that.
Systems diagram, you have to connect the dots, and the dots are the things, and the connection consider many things. So in the system diagram behind me, it's that you show the direct relationship. So the red line goes this way.
Yep.
But then there's also indirect relationship. Like I can get on in Daly City and get to Oakland in 4 different trains.
Yeah.
Right. I used to get off in West Oakland. I live very near West Oakland BART station. And so I can take any train I want. As long as it was going towards the East Bay. And how do I know that? Because I can see all of those other lines go the same direction, and they all stop in the same place. So you have to consider that because what you're considering is both the direct relationships and the indirect relationships. So what we call feedback loops. There's many types of feedback loops, but there's basically two. Number one, it's a reinforcing loop. So reinforcing loop is whatever the behavior that you want to happen, like the goal.
Yep.
Thomas needs to lose weight. He's got to burn some calories. So I got to get to here. So the reinforcing effect is the behavior that you want to do. And the cool thing about reinforcing loops is that it's like compounding interest.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like, what do I mean by compounding interest? If I had $100 and I made 10% per whatever period, the next period I would have $101, I guess. But now I'm not making 10% on $100. I'm now making it $101. It compounds, right? Reinforcing loops do that. A good reinforcing loop does that. The best reinforcing loops are exponential.
Yes.
Those like stock market comes into play.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things where it's like reinforcing loops. They get exponential because you get to see this tremendous growth.
Yeah.
There's not always reinforcing loops are always good though. Like cancer cells.
Right.
Not a good thing.
Nope.
A single cell splitting and doing that, all good things, right? Good things. It's healthy. You want those things. This is a reinforcing loop. But when that reinforcing loop becomes a negative thing, having too much of something is a problem. So in a system, if you have too much reinforcing, that also becomes a problem. So what we need to also have in a feedback loop is called a balancing loop.
Okay.
That's the inverse of a reinforcing loop. A balancing loop, in economics, they would call it a bear economy, right?
Yeah.
Like your gross domestic product drops a percentage over a given amount of time. If that happens, then you're in a balancing loop. Like you're no longer growing, but you're balancing loop. And so you need both.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and how do I do this? I'm like, hey, I could be like, I need to lose 80 pounds. 80 pounds, if you can calculate that into calories, and be like, okay, I need to just burn like 360,000 calories. Like, how many workouts, if I just maxed it out to the max, how much can I do that? Right? Can't do that. You got to rest. In fact, you must rest because the balancing loop, your body changes its physiology, or your body is actually adapting to things that's happening. So you need both. And that's just the human body, which is, oh my God, so complex.
Right.
But you have to have both. So in your system diagram, you have to show both. So the reinforcing loop, right? All this stuff here, the balancing loop, you notice in the upper part of this, it says, this is daytime service.
Yeah.
BART doesn't run 24 hours a day.
Right.
It only runs part of the time. So you have to understand there are system limitations to this. This isn't an unlimited system. So on your diagram, you have to show both. You have to show the behavior that you want. You have to label the linkages. You have to make the linkage very visible. And then if there's any reinforcing loops, being like, this is where we want you to go. That's the colors in this diagram behind me. I love colors. I can't see them all, so I use really brassy, like bold, clashing colors. And I do that on purpose, one, so I can see them. Even if they're the colors that I have trouble with, I can still tell the difference between the two.
The contrast, it helps contrast.
Yes, contrasting colors are very anybody can see them as long as you can see light, I guess.
Yeah.
So the reinforcing loop in the BART system diagram behind me is the colors. And then the balancing loop tells you the limitations, being like, if you want to go from point A to point B, you have to go here. So you have to understand that. And then like there's time involved in those kind of things. So you have to do both.
Yes.
Anything on feedback loops for you?
Yeah. So I got two things. On the reinforcing feedback loops, I think of those as like the inputs, right? What do I got to do? The actions that I got to take to produce the intended outcome. And when I take those actions, I hit the outcome. So if I want more of the outcome, I got to do a higher frequency of the actions, right? Boom, boom. Yes, it's working. Okay, do more. Da, 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 da. Now, I in my brain, I get twisted because when people ask me about KPIs, I think of these inputs that are the element of a reinforcing feedback loop or a reinforcing loop. But and maybe you can help straighten me out. When most people are talking about KPIs, they're talking about lag measures and outcomes. And I don't think of it that way. And so I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts on that? What's that?
It depends. KPIs. It depends what you're measuring. You know me and my Hollywood metrics.
Yes. Yes.
Hollywood metrics is Hollywood. Even on nonfiction, they still take some artistic license in their film adaptation.
Yep.
So Hollywood metrics are KPIs that they're fake. they're somehow not. They don't reflect reality. And the reason why most KPIs are fake because getting like the data that's really close to here and now, very hard. Super hard.
Yeah.
Well,
yes.
Almost impossible. Like even if you take a picture, the picture is just a snapshot of what was in front of that camera at that very moment.
Yep.
Even if you had a video and it was live, there'd still be some lag or you couldn't see everything. There's some problem in the whatever it is. So
yeah,
you can't see everything. So that's the problem with KPIs in my thing. I do like KPIs. I use them a ton,
right?
But like what we try to measure with those KPIs are those three main components. Like those are our bread and butter. How are we doing with people? Like what's the count of people? What are the trade, like the specific trade? Like what is, and not just like the company, like it's not TDI proper, right? It's so what we try to do is get down to a crew.
Yes.
And a crew could be 3 people, could be 2, maybe most of the time it's 3.
Yeah.
And so if you know what a crew is doing, and so that's, and their things, right? Their equipment, those kind of things.
Yep.
You can be like, okay, all right, I know what those people are doing. And then also another thing that we measure, we spend lots of time on the material, the flow of material, all the way from a factory. Cool.
Yep.
I got spreadsheets upon spreadsheets on Power BIs that get updated by all kinds of brands. I'll leave them alone.
Yeah.
But manufacturers, and remember we started this whole thing on your problem isn't the world's problem. And in fact, if you rush, like the Lover's Beer thing, if you rush an order, there's a problem because there's a response delay by the time from the time that you order something until they act. Yep. It's called a response delay.
Yep.
So we actually take that into consideration. Are we not the orders going in and out, those kind of things, but also like the current status. And we try to use as much proof as possible. So like tracking numbers, like on semi trucks or cruise ship or container ships or those kind of things. Like, yeah, that's all awesome data. Those great data points to have. Very, very time consuming to get those and track them because it's the world all over the place. So that's materials, and then the information.
Oh, that's a different one. Yeah.
It's like the whole, like, you go to the LCA and they have like the booths.
Yes.
I would say all of those booths, they're all deal in information flow.
Mm-hmm. Oh God, yes.
Right?
Yep.
The blue and the orange, the two kind of main softwares.
Yeah.
I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
Blue and the orange.
I love it. Yeah.
I like them both.
They need to have their own M&Ms, like the blue M&Ms over here with these groups, and then the orange M&Ms.
Listen, both do very amazing things with information. They flow it around. You get it on your tablet. It's beautiful. But I used to work. Remember, I worked 25 years ago. Those things, they existed, but they weren't great.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Most files, if you had to store it on like a zip disk, right? It had to be physical. So you needed like physical ways to store things. So like the filing cabinet is legit and it worked.
Yes. Yeah.
A very, 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 very popular computer company. I'm trying to. There could be. They're down here. Actually, they're off the screen. They're in Silicon Valley. Their headquarters was managed through mostly paper and pencil, right? So like we can manage construction on pencil and paper and physical things, but like it's sped up through the flow of information. How do we speed up the flow of information? We stop mailing submittals, right? We just throw it on this cloud server. We can still use our information requesting system, but now it's like trackable and not just like we just didn't lob it on an email. Those kind of things, those are all beautiful, and it helped us speed up, and we'll get all kinds of crazy insights from it. So you have to manage that. Like you have to manage your flow of information. And so if you're Jesse, you're the installer, and there's a change in a dimension, like how quickly can I get you that dimension?
Right.
If I can get you that dimension before you start working, like before you start your layout, you can be like, oh, I got this. Yeah. Instead of 6 inches, it's 7 1/4. Boom. Got it. Now we meet ADA, right? Our flush thing. Oh man. So, flowing information is very, very key.
Yes.
So those 3 things, those are all key KPIs that you can constantly measure how things are moving, if things are stuck, those kind of things. And then your other kind of reinforcing loop are your schedule.
Yeah.
You have a schedule. It's like you update it, you rarely update it. These are the things. This is the path. And then as you update the schedule, it has its computer program, so it adjusts things as logic is based. And then the other one is your balancing loops. So these would be your issues or punch lists, quality problems, those kind of things. And so you have to also consider your balancing loops of things that are messed up.
Yeah.
Because things are stick built. They're built by human beings. Even robots make mistakes. So you have to track those and incorporate it until those work. So that's why KPIs, for me, they're very static. And so if your component is static, that's unchanging. That doesn't exist in construction, period.
Right.
That's unchanging. I mean, like even factories that are complete still do maintenance and stuff. So like if your component is static, you can have a static KPI, meaning like it's a fake goal or something. So dynamic behavior, like if you have something that changed, what you try to do is whenever you cycle that KPI, meaning like we're going to update that Power BI every day, every hour, once a month,
Right.
once a quarter. It depends. Like, it just depends, whatever it is. But my thing is like, whatever you're looking at, whatever you're showing should change or inform or influence behavior.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
if you look at it and you're not influenced at all, then it's not.
Cut it. You don't need it.
Anything. Yes.
Yes.
So
yes.
the best KPIs, it's like the tachometer on your dashboard. Right? Like, whoa, wow, I'm revving this engine really high. That's probably not good for the integrity of an engine. Or the temperature is high, and that temperature gauge is linked to a sensor that's stuck in the antifreeze, and it tells you almost in real time what the temperature is. So that cycle is dynamic, but it's like really close in time. So that's the KPI. If you don't want to have Hollywood metrics, it's very close to here and now. Another rabbit hole you sent me down. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and Maria says the first thing she learned in stats class was that you can find a number to support any theory. I like that because I know I've done that.
Yes.
Well, and then so the reinforcing loop. I struggled with that for a little while. And the way I reconciled it is, I'm sorry, not the reinforcing loop, the balancing loop. The balancing loop, the reinforcing loop, I'm fine. I got that. The balancing loop, I have to think about it in terms of like a reductive impact on a situation. It's almost like a friction loop. So if I'm planning a system, if I'm launching, we're launching a new software, right? We're going from the blue guy to the orange guy, right? I know that in the feedback loop, the reinforcing loops, does it bring personal value, business value, social value, right? If I can say yes to those three things or design that in somehow, that's freaking awesome. It's going to ease or lower the friction and accelerate the adoption. And I also have to account for what I think of as friction loops because I need to have a mitigation plan for the haters that want to stay blue. They don't want to be orange. Why are you moving my cheese? That's stupid. I don't like. So, and that would be the balancing loop. But to me, balancing has a default positive perspective. So I have to think of it in terms of a friction loop because it's something that is going to slow down or take away from the intended outcome, target, initiative, goal, etc.
Yeah. Changing a project management software on a complex system like a small organization or even a large organization. Very, very complex. many reinforcing loops, many balancing loops. Some of them are social, like right? Like just changing something is a balancing loop in itself. Because the reason why is because I got a new login, I gotta download a new app, I gotta like my phone is cracked, my screen is cracked. Like it creates more. It creates new problems. Yeah. So feedback loops do that. They do both.
Right.
And if your system diagram does not have both, your system diagram is incomplete.
Yes.
Yes.
I love that.
You have to take into consideration. You can go crazy, but remember the scope, right? Remember the scope.
Right. What are we not talking about?
Yeah. So, I mean, you could go down the rabbit hole upon rabbit hole upon rabbit hole, but if you leave the scope, and that's why a boundary is really important because it helps keep people back into whatever the subject matter that you're talking about. So that's why it's very, very complex. I have an example. I've actually shown this anyways, but it was from what did you call it? Your little e-learning. the I got to share my screen.
Oh,
The anti-conference.
Oh, the decentralized conference.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Share my screen.
Coming on up. Folks, if y'all are here, thank you for being there. I know we got some people coming in from YouTube land and LinkedIn land. I appreciate y'all being here. Thomas and I are having a lot of fun talking about the fifth discipline, the book titled The Fifth Discipline by Peter Senge. Senge, right? I got it right this time. And so here we go. Mr. Thomas has some magic to show us.
Okay, do you recall this slide?
I do. That was part of your presentation.
Man, I love this. This is I called this. I was talking about the OODA loop, OODA. But when you talk about a system, you have to look at it. And one way to look at it, there's a method. I teach this all the time. It's called the hasty search and the detailed search.
Ooh.
But what you're doing is you're modeling, and you can just do this in your brain. But you create this model, this system model in your brain. And how do you do it? You have to follow a systematic approach. Yeah. So I was showing this photo, and the photo is 4 gentlemen working in New York City. You can see Empire there off in the distance. Yeah. And I guess this would probably be Brooklyn because they're on this side of the river. New York City.
New York City.
And the 4 gentlemen there, and it's like you have to make quick glances at specific points. Remember, you have to like understand the system and all the things. So you can actually stare at. You have to stare. It's kind of, you have to be kind of weird when you do this, but you have to stop what you're doing. Shut your mouth, shut your mouth, and actually look. If you don't shut your mouth, you won't see, and if you don't stop, you'll miss. You can't do this action. And this action is you make quick glances at specific points. And remember the map, it's probably behind me, very small now, but the map of art, you're trying to do that same behavior, but you do the points with your eyeballs. So it's like, I'm going to start at the bottom. I'm going to start at their feet. And I'm going to see, okay, I see there's, I'm going to start right in the center. Actually, one gentleman is at a height lower than the other 3. So there's an edge right there. Okay, now I'm going to scoot over. And I can see it looks like there's loose fall protection just on the floor. Okay, got it. And then I'm going to scan back to the right. And now I can see that, okay, it looks like they're forming, because I can see there's rebar. Yeah. And it's like, okay, I can see that this is probably a carpenter or some kind of a concrete gang or something involved with something to do with that deck that they're standing on. Because I don't see. And the other thing, remember the exclusion? How do you know they're not electricians? Do you see a rolling cart or like electrician type tools, like a conduit bender? You see any sleeves or the pipe hangers? Like, no, I don't. So what you don't see also is a tell. So then I'll and then I'll glance over and I'll glance back at them, and now I'm looking at their chest height, and I'm like, they're all wearing fall protection. Right? You can keep zooming in on their fall protection, and you can see some flaws. But let's keep scanning.
Right.
And now I'm going to look over and I'm going to be like, okay, it looks like they're on a roof or at least some kind of like elevated structure. So they're up high. And now I'm going to scan back over, and then scanning back over, you look for overhead things. So things above them. And so what you do is you start really close. So I started with the thing that's front and center, really closest to me, that edge, and then I'll work far away. So then I might actually glance over and look at, I don't know what street that is, part of Midtown. New York City, Midtown
Yeah.
Manhattan. I'm looking at, right? That's the last thing I'll look at is what's something far, far away. And it can see like that, oh, there's something happening across the way. There's another big construction project. But I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to zoom back. So I'm going to change my focus again. And that's a hasty search. So you have to do that. And remember, it's just like the making a map. Like you can make these maps in your brain, but you have to do so systematically.
Yes.
So what you do there, you can see it. It's like looking at the BART map. You can link all these things together. And now very quickly, and I call this a hasty search. And I don't even make this up. This comes from the United States Marine Corps.
Yeah.
But you can make a model in your brain really fast and make it. They call it situational awareness. That says it's how you do it. And this is how it's trained. So I like wanted to give people again just a little more like tidbit. Like you can do this for real on your job site tomorrow. The trick: stand in one place. Don't say anything.
That's the hard part, Thomas.
Because it's like, oh, that guy's leg straps are loose. Right? He's over 6 feet. Before you do that, take into account into consideration other things around it, and then you can walk up to those gentlemen and actually have a real conversation, like a real conversation.
Right.
Instead of just some people would probably just yell from this point.
Yes.
Right? Yep. And they definitely need to do that in a big way, in a hurried way. But you can actually understand what's happening there,
right?
And then zoom in. So after you do that, you can focus on. You can do a detailed search, and a detailed search now is an arc. It's a 180-degree arc in front of you, and it's only 50 yards in depth.
Gotcha. So again, scoping in.
So you really scope. And then what you try to do here before you approach this crew is you try to memorize as much of those specific things as you can and note anything that's prominent.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say that because if you don't do this step, your mental model will be incomplete, and you'll get enraged with the rules or some kind of a situation. Like, listen, these guys, yes, they're near an edge, but is there weight dangling over it? Not right now.
Right.
But we can catch them in that moment. And this is just a safety thing. You can do this for quality things as well. I have many more examples, but I teach people at DPR how to do this.
Yeah.
Well,
one thing I want to point out is like the word hasty search sounds like it's a do not do.
Yeah.
Right.
It's hasty. It's like, oh, you're messy. Yeah.
Right. But it is a style of observation. It is a method of which to come into a new space, new environment, new situation, take in as much information because take in information in a systematic way so that you can inform yourself before you open your big fat mouth. That's kind of what I'm taking.
Yes. And like literally once you have that model memorized in your brain, you can now have a legitimate conversation about whatever situation was.
Right.
Because you memorize it. It's in depth. In your brain. You've made a model in your brain. And what you learn from Peter Senge is like everything is a model. Everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even you standing in one place doing a hasty search, you're creating a model of the reality in your brain. You're literally taking a snapshot. And your brain, remember, is full of all kinds of bias. And maybe you're tired or you're distracted. And like by the time, let's say I saw this and I wasn't doing the search, I was just walking by, I might not even notice. I might not even been looking that they weren't even tied off.
Right.
I might have just walked by. And if I didn't do that hasty search, and it's quick. I mean, I'm talking 10 seconds,
Right.
or less. You might miss it. And the consequence to missing something like that, it now puts a mistake that could happen in the responsibility of the gentleman they're working, and that's not always fair, I think.
Right.
And so I use that as an example, and it's not to pick on those workers. Those workers are skilled; they're working, and
Right.
they have all the stuff on. They just gotta like take the next step to do it. And if you just had, hey, let's hook up, and be like, Thomas, there's nowhere to hook up. I'm like, okay, then we designed this working deck incorrectly.
Yeah. Yes.
Let's put the fall protection back up, and let's have a legitimate conversation about it. Because again, if it's about production, I'll walk by that all day long, and those guys will probably 199% of the time have no issue with that work.
Yes.
But it's not without zero risk. So if we truly respect people, we have to make these models in our brain. So everybody, you can this requires actual intelligence. This is free. You can do this as long as you can see out your eyes. You can do this.
Yes. Awesome sauce.
I'm like, I have too many screens open now.
Oh, got you.
Let me get back to the live stream. Okay, should we keep going?
I don't know. What do you think? I mean, it feels like a good point to transition and to say, see you in a couple weeks, or dive into the next element. What are you feeling like?
Well, let's close the loop on yes, because the next element, it gets into that 4-letter word called delay.
Oh, yeah.
And so maybe that's a whole
conversation.
a whole conversation about delay.
Yeah.
Fluctuation.
Oh yeah. No,
linking the goal together with
yeah.
But that's where theory of constraints comes in.
Yeah.
It was chapter 6. So maybe we'll save it. But I wanted to kind of wrap up chapter 5 here.
Let's do it.
We said that in your system diagram, sketching isn't optional. Sketching is required.
Yes.
And the reason why sketching is required, because it's dynamic. Even if you drew on it wrong, be like, hey, we're going to do rebar, and then we're going to do the embeds, and then we're going to do the foundation, but whatever. And if you got that wrong, and the electrician was standing there watching it, be like, you missed me.
Yep. Yes.
Missed me. And if that electrician wasn't in there, we could have not designed their work into that plan, and we missed.
Yes.
So the reason why you sketch and you draw the arcs and you don't draw them ahead of time, the arcs meaning like your reinforcing loops or your balancing loops, is for that reason. You have to seek feedback.
Yes. Yes.
So how do you seek feedback? You have to share it. So if you draw these beautiful logistics plans, but you don't show it to anybody, or you only show it to like,
you can only see it in the trailer.
Yeah, if it's only in the trailer,
who cares?
Then it probably won't reflect reality out. And it's like, well, how do we get this high definition? Listen, we build buildings. I'm sure we can build some kind of weatherproof structure in which we can view a logistic plan in the outdoors. I know we can do that. I've been to a national park. I've looked at maps.
Yeah.
In a weatherproof structure, we can persevere. We can do this. So you have to seek feedback, and that means your diagram, when you seek feedback, if it's incorrect, you gotta change it.
Yes.
All right. So all this beautiful, this is very famous system diagram behind me. They get all kinds of feedback on this one. And when for me, I have trouble with red and green colors. And you'll notice there's a red line and there's a green line, but you'll notice they're not in the same place. And then also, you'll notice the chart has the letter in the color.
Ah,
And now
yeah.
it's like, okay, that shade of gray is green. Boom, I can see it. So you have to seek feedback.
Yes.
You have to seek feedback, and your feedback has to come from very diverse people, colorblind people or people. Hello.
Yes. Yes.
I don't have that big of a disability, but I definitely do. So it's
Yep.
not really hard to put a letter in your legend and say that this is green, right?
Yeah.
So you can't be afraid from that. And so if you get feedback from the people who use the information, and you change it.
Yeah.
And that helps you identify blind spots. And that's another reinforcing effect, because if you actually change it and the next time you have a conversation, I'll be like, hey, we moved the porta-johns from this spot over here, from here to here. Like, these guys actually listen to us.
Yep.
Right? Now it's like, I just reinforce that if I give feedback and action happens, I'm more likely to give more feedback.
100%.
So if
Don't
you're doing
ask for
plus
feedback.
delta,
Oh, yes.
right?
Preach.
Delta is the thing to change. And I've been guilty as much as I've been a proponent of plus delta. But if you don't take action on those delta items, don't be surprised that when you get to the delta section, it's like crickets. It's like, really?
Yeah.
There was nothing we need to change? The reason why you're getting feedback from the silence that we don't trust that you will take any action on this meeting. So we'll just say the temperature could have been better. Like something
Breakfast was good. Yep.
Something was lame. Yeah. Like, no, like, hey, that chart that you had up there with red, yellow, and green metrics, I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
I couldn't. So you were pointing at this is good and this is bad. I was like, this is desert camo, right?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So yeah. So like, if you're not, and that's just one example, but if we're not being inclusive and asking for that feedback, if you don't seek it, you don't get feedback loops.
Yes.
You don't get reinforcing loops. You don't get balancing loops. It's so important. And it's so like, it's like, damn, that's so much shit to remember. Right. Like, systems diagram is incredibly hard. And like, if you give a system diagram effort to an intern, they don't understand all the parts or have the network to go, or even just the courage to go ask the general superintendent about something. So don't be surprised if your logistics plan that you gave to the BIM modeler doesn't match reality, because they can't see it. You have to give them feedback.
Right.
And then the last one I say was, once you do this iteration thing, so your system diagram is never static. And this is why I love doing this, because this is like my satisfaction. My enjoyment is just constantly tweaking stuff. Like, I'll put out something that's incomplete on purpose just to get feedback and be like, okay, we can go on. If we wait till these things are polished and it's like refined and it's, we got this cool animation that goes with that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, good. Don't get me wrong. Some of these animated logistics plans or way of explaining complex systems, it takes a lot to like an animation show it, right? But if we're waiting for that thing to happen, we might miss an opportunity to get feedback. So like, we got to show the drafts. You got to iterate. You got to iterate.
Yes.
So I'll leave it at that. I just wanted to just really explain how this works in my brain. And I think about this all the time. I designed my whole life around it. Do you have a
I gotta
have one to show.
something.
Maybe I'll break it down for you. We'll see if this actually works. But yeah, this is how I think. Often people who think this way, we are like the Enneagrams, we are the 4s and 5s.
Okay.
And not the 9s, 8s and 9s. 8s and 9s, they love to look at a spreadsheet.
Yep.
Right. The spreadsheet, it's like not like
Numbers. Yeah.
but if you start adding patterns like highlighting things, or give me the capability to sort or search.
Yep.
So if you want to drive me crazy, do the thing in Excel where you take like 3 cells and hit the combine. Because I can't sort it. I can't tweak it. I can't mess around with it.
Oh, when you combine a cell, merge a bunch of cells. Yeah.
You can't. Yeah. So never, ever, 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 ever. Just turn that feature off in Excel.
Oh,
okay. That's working with me. It's very frustrating to work with me, but some people enjoy it because it's like, oh yeah, we get to draw stuff on the wall and be creative and go on job walks and do hasty searches.
yes.
And the reason why I like bring in the Marine Corps is because like who doesn't think that's cool?
Right. Right.
We're like, hey, you can train people like Marine snipers. And that's like all of that doctrine is available online. You can go get it right now. It's very free, but then you can adapt it. So my last tidbit before you go forward and to kind of wrap up like my weight loss kind of journey.
Yep.
Specificity, meaning like I am not Arnold. I weigh this much, right?
Yeah. Yes.
You have to accept that whatever the specific thing is, the specificity is whatever you are exactly at that very moment.
Yes.
Doing that in a group is even harder because like you gotta take surveys. We gotta understand. So specificity, you have to get to it. And then the other one is adaptation. So once you now know the specific thing, I might have to go get my blood work done. I gotta like get on a treadmill and see what my VO2 max is.
Yep.
Right. Like you got to take measurements. And then the adaptation is okay, you're not quite ready for the Olympics just yet, Thomas.
Yep.
You're not even ready for a 5K, but you can now not walk, right? Like right. So I can now adapt what I know myself, and now I can adapt it to my specific thing. And then if that thing iterates, so now I've gotten stronger or my cardiovascular capabilities goes up, I now have to, my specificity has changed. So now I have to adapt it. So you're constantly changing and adapting things. Like, listen, I'd lost 10 pounds just by not eating candy bars.
Damn.
Like, don't eat candy bars anymore. That worked for 10 pounds and then it stopped working. So you have to be very specific and you have to adapt. You have to do both. And the specificity in your personal life is hard because you have to accept reality. And my thing is I had multiple addictions to things, and to overcome an addiction, the first step is you have to accept that you're addicted.
Yes. Yeah.
That hurts. Oh man, the truth hurts.
Oh yeah.
But then from there, it's like, oh, okay. Well then I should generally avoid the thing that's addictive. Got it. But even if I slip up once, not the end of the world. I can adapt. I just move on.
Next, you got another meal to make it up.
Like,
You'll be fine.
Another meal, another day. Like I have a chance. I have constantly chances.
Yes.
And like so that my thing is like that's the best part is having the chance.
Yes.
Oh man. So I'll stop there.
Yeah.
But system thinking, I've just integrated it in all parts of my life, and it's changed the way I like this chapter because it changes your worldview.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go there with you also, right? The mental models, the feedback loops, like those little things, the concepts, I'm going to call them concepts. They're not really concepts, principles. Really help me examine my thinking and my behavior so that I can take more ownership of it. So in terms of like personal transformation, weight loss falling in that bucket, understanding or like using the framework of systems thinking has helped me accelerate whatever that is, right? Now, so I'll say that, and I want to share the kind of the power of having a visual thing for people to interact with. What do you think about that, Mr. Thomas?
I'm already like scanning. I'm doing a hasty search right now.
Hasty searching, huh? And so this is the.
Okay.
Is that?
I like it. I'm following the steps already. So you pick a color. You have a activity. What's that Kanban board there?
Yep.
Oh man. And so so you're connecting the dots. I guess you put your name on it and then you move yourself through the flow. Is that it?
No, so close.
Yeah.
So these orange here, I'll just zoom in right here. These little orange buttons were the topics or the points that me and Jennifer were going to make in the conversation of this learning experience. So Ian Smith here, he was the purple, the lavender. And so everybody like, get your color and draw, like share your knowledge, share your insight, share your thought, ask your question. And so as Jennifer and I were doing the flapping of the gums, everybody was able to interact and contribute at the same time, which enhanced the experience and the knowledge transfer.
Yeah. And so you know how I said like you have to draw the line?
Yep.
I like this because you can see where Ian went without the line drawn because the color is fixed. So you can see Ian's path. I like Ian.
Yes, Ian's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could see.
But you can see the path, so you can just follow his journey. So you don't actually need like the drawn lines. I was giving people a hard time about that. But you can do this invisibly, but you can actually use patterns and colors to link.
Yes.
Yeah, I like it.
So anyways,
you're labeling linkages. Man, you're like systems. This is a systems diagram. Not damn. I like it. Yes. But that's exactly it. And you had feedback loops on there because if you looked at the card, it gave you information.
Yep.
But then also by having that information as you went through the steps, it had a reinforcing effect because the previous step probably had you think about it. And then when you went to the next one, you're already kind of framed, like it helped you focus on the next link, like next thing in the chain or whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
So or a station, you got to the next station, you're already in the right frame of mind for that question.
Yes.
So it like, yes.
So you're
not only do you label the linkages, but you connected the dots through the colors. Yes.
Yeah. And so
that's there you go. Damn.
Here's another. This was session 2. Mm-hmm. This is the plus deltas from session 2.
Uh-oh, watch out.
Right. So we got that feedback. Come over here. This is how we start session 1, the next session. This is the feedback you gave us in the plus delta.
Yeah.
Right. This was the thing.
So you started the next session with the delta. Boom.
Yeah.
So you just created so you had a balancing loop.
Yep.
From one session became a reinforcing loop.
You got it. Yes, sir.
Hopefully everybody listening is following along.
Yeah. It didn't occur to me like, wait a minute, I got something like that.
Yes.
But
we can go on and on and on.
Getting it out of our head, making it visual where people can interact changes the game entirely.
And
So
remember how we were talking about respecting people? So you can, within one look, I mean, I've never seen that diagram before, but within one quick look, I can be like, okay, because I did
yeah,
a hasty search on it and be like, okay, I can say look for very specific things, colors,
yep,
patterns, charts, and I can follow along. And now we don't have to have this like 2 hour long onboarding process
right,
to get people to follow the rules, because why? The rules are inherent in your system if you just teach people the rules. Yeah, so they call that intuitive.
yeah,
It's just intuitive. And a lot of onboarding, it's a lot of compliance, right? If you've
yes,
got that in onboarding, it's a lot of compliance related things you have to do so for law or whatever. You have to do so. But it gets wasted, and the reason why like what you teach in that onboarding that's gets wasted is because it's counterintuitive. You get people early in the morning, like we do these meditation sessions,
yep,
6:30 a.m. and we teach people like the fall distance chart. Have you seen that? Like if you were to fall and you were tied off to your feet, it would
oh yeah,
actually
yeah,
take
yeah,
like 19 feet to stop you. And our floors on this project are 12 feet, so you can't tie like that. Makes sense. But if like I'm 6:30 in the morning and I just walk through mud, right, to get there, and I'm cold, and like the orientation trailer is like dimly lit and not heated well, I'm sitting there shivering, and it's like, and the screen is hard to see. Like I'm not paying attention. That's counterintuitive.
right,
So to flip that, we gotta make it intuitive. Yes, I like
yes,
that. But yeah. So that's the test
that's
to a
it,
system diagram is in one look you can understand whatever the subject matter is, upon
yeah,
you, because the next session, the real world comes in. You know that Irish guy, his name's Murphy,
oh yeah,
sneaks
I know
in.
it, yeah,
Dr. Goldratt, perhaps talking about constraints.
yeah,
Both of them, Ephrat more recently, but yeah. So that way, your system diagram, it might be cool, and like we want to laminate this thing. But if you laminate it, the reason why you laminate it is so you can sketch on it,
yeah,
not because it's not touchable. You don't put it behind glass. What I'm trying to say.
right.
Yeah. So that's it. That's it. 100%.
10-4. Awesome. Well, then next time we're gonna be talking about delays, which I
Yes.
think is gonna get a lot of
A fancy word called archetypes.
archetype.
Archetypes.
Yes, yes, I like it.
Archetypes. I'm saying it wrong, like Peter Senge. But and the reason why a system archetypes come into play because they become building blocks. So if you have, let's say, this system, and then we also have a bridge system for cars and other things, right? But both of those are archetypes. And so they definitely interact, because who uses bridges and who uses roads and who uses BART? People. Hello.
People.
But then also they influence each other, right?
Right.
And so you have to understand that. And what is the influence behavior oftentimes? Are delays.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we'll dive deep into that. I have another. I think perhaps no. This was the EBFC show. I was talking about looking down a bridge and being in a bottleneck. I might pull that that visual out. That's a good story about learning about bridges and constraints, because on a bridge that goes like the story is the bridge collapses, and it collapses into another road, and it's like, what's the constraint? And like, the bridge is out. No, there's two. the bridge is out and the other road is blocked.
Yes.
And those are
Yeah.
different directions. So we'll talk about that. And then also like how delays kind of become both reinforcing effects and balancing loops. They're both like you can use delays to your favor. And this is some, I'll just tee that up. That using delays to your favor. What are you talking about, Thomas? So we'll talk about that.
No, but you totally can. Totally.
100%. You can use delays to your favor. Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. All right, my man. Well, next time, and folks out there in the Omniverse, appreciate y'all. We had some fun, and we'll see y'all next time. Peace.